She stood trembling in front of the teller, clutching a yellow envelope, and as they yelled at her like she was nothing, no one said a word, except him. The air was thick with fluorescent hum and silence, the kind that hangs in banks and government offices where no one wants to be. Miss Clara James, 74, stood at the entrance of Wyd Park Credit Union with a yellow envelope pressed to her chest. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from age, from exhaustion, from the weight of having to ask again. Her dress, faded and threadbare, bore the signs of hundreds of washes. Her shoes were 2 sizes too big, borrowed from the church donation bin. She had walked 3 blocks to get here because the bus driver didn't stop when he saw her waving. She hated coming to this place, but her disability check hadn't cleared, and her landlord was already threatening to change the locks. Behind her, a man in a plain black t-shirt and jeans stepped inside. He moved like someone used to taking hits, shoulders broad, steps slow, eyes always scanning. He didn't look famous. He didn't want to be noticed. His name tag read, Vin. He was only here to close an old account. No cameras, no fans, just a man trying to lay low. Vin stepped in line, 2 people behind Ms. Clara. He noticed how people stared at her. The teller rolled her eyes. A woman in a suit whispered something and chuckled behind the glass. Clara approached the counter when it was her turn, holding her envelope gently, like it was something sacred. "Ma'am," she said softly, "I think there's been a mistake. My check, it didn't go through. I just need to—" "Did you read the instructions?" The teller snapped, not even looking up. "We don't fix benefits here." Clara blinked, stunned. "But, Ma'am, I've been coming here for 6 years. I always deposit it right here." "Then maybe you've been doing it wrong for 6 years. That's when Vin's head lifted. He stared, jaw tightening. One of the managers, a woman with a badge that read Assistant VP, stepped in. "Ma'am, if you can't understand our process, maybe you need someone to help you next time," she said loudly, deliberately. The lobby had gone quiet. Clara's lip quivered. "We're not a charity." Vin stepped forward slightly, but didn't speak yet. Not yet. He watched Clara slowly lower her envelope. Her lips moved like she wanted to say something, but she didn't. She turned, ready to leave, humiliated. If you were in that room, would you have spoken up? Or walked away like everyone else? Comment below, be honest. Clara turned to walk away, her eyes watery but dry. Even her tears had learned to hold back. Her envelope shook slightly in her hand, as if the contents inside, her rent, her survival, were embarrassed to be there too. The manager huffed and rolled her eyes. "Ma'am, next time bring someone who can explain things for you," she said, loud enough for the entire lobby to hear. Vin Diesel took 1 step forward, then another. No one noticed him yet. That's how used to fading into backgrounds he had become. But then, "That's enough." His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. The room froze. The woman behind the glass looked up. The uniformed employees turned. Clara stopped in her tracks. Vin stood still, hands by his sides, but his presence filled the space like a rising storm. His eyes weren't angry. They were disappointed. Deeply. "Sir, this doesn't concern you," the assistant manager snapped, suddenly defensive. "It does now," Vin replied, stepping closer to Clara. "You spoke to her like she wasn't human." The second teller scoffed. "She was holding up the line." "She's 74, he said, glancing down at Clara's fragile hands. "And she was asking for help, not a lecture." Clara's voice broke the silence. "Please don't cause trouble for yourself, baby," she whispered. Vin looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, something moved behind his guarded expression. A memory. A face. A woman who once looked like her. His mother, maybe. Someone long gone. "I'm not causing trouble," he said gently. "I'm standing with someone who doesn't deserve this." The manager's voice sharpened. "Sir, we'll have to ask you to leave." "Not until she gets the help she came for," Vin said. "And an apology." Everyone was watching now. Phones were halfway out of pockets. You could feel the weight of shame in the air. But no one wanted to be the first to drop it. A younger clerk, quiet until now, stood up from behind the counter. "Let me see her paperwork," he said softly, walking forward. His voice cracked, nervous. The assistant manager looked furious, but the damage was done. The power had shifted. If you're the kind of person who'd stand up like he did, don't just watch in silence. Subscribe. These stories are for you. The younger clerk walked Clara to a seat. Vin followed. No one clapped, no one cheered. But something changed, not just in that bank, in him. The clerk who had stepped in, David, finished processing Clara's papers quietly at his cubicle. Clara sat in a nearby chair, staring at the floor. The envelope was still in her lap, wrinkled from how tightly she had gripped it. Vin leaned against the wall a few feet away, silent. The room had returned to business as usual, but the tension lingered like smoke after a fire. People stole glances. Some nodded in approval. Others looked annoyed that things had gotten messy. David returned. "Your deposit will reflect by 5 p.m. today, ma'am," he said softly. "I'm sorry." Clara gave a faint nod. "Thank you, baby." She didn't look at Vin. As she stood to leave, he followed her outside. The hot air outside the bank felt almost cruel after the cold fluorescent tension indoors. She turned to him before he could say anything. "You shouldn't have done that." Vin raised an eyebrow. "Done what? Stopped them from talking to you like garbage?" Clara sighed, tired. "I've had worse." "That doesn't make it right." "I don't need saving." That hit him harder than he expected. He stepped back, giving her space. "Didn't say you did." She looked at him now, really looked. "Then why?" He hesitated. "Because you reminded me of someone. Because no one spoke up when my mother was mistreated like that. Because I'm tired of being silent. Because maybe I needed saving too." But all he said was, "Because it was wrong." She studied him. "What's your name?" "Vin." She squinted. "You famous or something?" Vin cracked a half smile. "Not today." She turned to leave. "Thank you, Mr. Vin, not today. But next time, don't cause trouble on account of old ladies. It doesn't fix the world." He watched her walk away, slow and proud. He wanted to say something else but didn't. He didn't know how to say that maybe he wasn't trying to fix the world. Maybe just one woman's afternoon. Maybe just one ghost from his past. At this point, what do you think Vin should do? Walk away and move on, or follow her and make sure she's truly okay? Comment below. What would you do? The sun beat down on the sidewalk like it was punishing the city for existing. Clara's steps were slower than usual. Her left shoe flapped every third pace. She stopped to catch her breath near the corner where the bus stop used to be, until the city took out the bench and never put it back. Vin's black SUV pulled up to the red light. AC humming. Windows down just enough to catch some breeze. He looked out, and there she was. Same dress, same envelope, different kind of tired. He rolled the window down further. "You waiting on a ride?" Clara squinted. "Why, you offering?" He shrugged. "Only if you promise not to yell at me for helping." She stared at him. The light turned green. A car behind honked. Vin didn't move. She huffed and shuffled over. "This ain't no rescue. It's a ride." He smiled. "A ride, not a rescue." "Got it." She got in, slowly, carefully. The car was cool and smelled like pine and leather. She sank into the seat like her body didn't believe it deserved comfort. They drove in silence for a moment. "You live around here?" he asked. 32 years, she replied. "Ever since my husband passed. Raised my kids in that same 2-bedroom. Vin nodded. "Kids still around?" "Scattered. One in Philly, one I don't hear from. A daughter in nursing school down south. I'm just here, holding it down." The silence returned, but it was different this time. Clara glanced at him. "What about you? Where you headed?" Vin took a second. "Nowhere important. You talk like a man with ghosts." He chuckled softly. "You see ghosts in everyone?" "No. Just the ones who wear them like armor." He looked at her, impressed. She didn't break her gaze. The GPS spoke. Clara pointed left. "Take this turn. I live near the church." He turned. "You don't have to walk," he said suddenly. "Next time you need the bank or groceries, just call me." Clara raised an eyebrow. "And why would I have your number?" Vin smiled again, pulled out a card. No logo, just a number. "I'm not trying to rescue you," he said, "but I don't mind riding along sometimes." She took it, held it in her hand, didn't say thank you, didn't have to. Later that evening, Vin sat in his car in front of his apartment, Clara's address still in his GPS history. He couldn't shake the image of her walking down that hot street, envelope in hand, like it carried her last bit of hope. He wasn't supposed to care, he usually didn't. But something about Clara was familiar. Not her voice or her walk. It was the way she held everything in. He thought of his mother, gone 10 years now. A woman who cooked 2 meals a day, worked herself to the bone and never once asked for help. Not when the power was cut. Not when his father left. Not even when the doctor said, "Stage 4. She died alone in a county hospital, and Vin hadn't been there. Clara reminded him of that silence. The next morning, he pulled up to Clara's building with a small paper bag in hand. Eggs, milk, a few things, just in case. He didn't expect her to buzz him in. She did. Her apartment was small, clean. Everything had a place. A photo of a man in military uniform sat on the mantel, a folded flag beside it. "That's Harold," she said, noticing his eyes. 40 years married. Heart attack took him on a Tuesday. He still had breakfast on the stove. Vin nodded. "You miss him?" "Every day. But I don't cry anymore. That part ran out." She motioned to the couch. He sat. "You don't talk much about yourself," she said. "I used to," Vin replied. Didn't help much. She poured him tea. No sugar, no milk, just hot, bitter honesty. "Where's your family?" she asked. He paused. "Gone. Some by choice, some not." Clara watched him quietly. "And yet here you are, dropping off eggs to an old woman who told you off in public." Vin smiled. "You've got bite." She smiled too, but it faded fast. "They always do that to me in banks," she said, almost whispering. "Ever since Harold died. It's like they think I'm lost or confused or stupid. You're none of those." "No," she said. "But after a while, you start to wonder." There it was. The line he couldn't shake. The moment when dignity breaks. He looked at her and said what no one ever had. "I saw you, and you mattered. You still do." Her eyes filled, but didn't spill. She nodded. "Sit. I'll make you something. I don't let people leave my house hungry." Clara's kitchen was small, but it smelled like Sunday. Garlic, onions, hot oil in a pan. Vin sat at her tiny table, listening to the sizzle of eggs and the creak of the old floorboards as she moved. "You know," Clara said, flipping eggs like she'd been doing it for decades, "my Harold never lifted a finger in the kitchen. Man thought dish soap was perfume." Vin chuckled. "He sounds like a handful." "He was," she said, smiling to herself. "But he was my handful." Vin looked around the room. Photos lined the walls. Kids, grandkids, a graduation cap here, a baby there. A life built in moments, not money. She set the plate in front of him. 2 eggs, toast, a slice of tomato. "No meat," he teased. "This ain't no diner," she fired back, smirking. He laughed. "Fair enough." They ate quietly for a moment. Comfortable, familiar, like 2 people who'd known each other in another life. "You know, you're not what I expected," she said. Vin raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "You walk like a man who's ready to fight, but you sit like someone who's tired of it." He paused. "Maybe I've just fought enough." She nodded. "Maybe." The old clock on the wall ticked louder than it should have. Clara poured more tea. This time she added a sugar cube. "For you," she said, "you look like you take life too bitter." Vin smiled. "You trying to sweeten me up?" "Boy, if I wanted to sweeten you up, I'd bake my peach cobbler. This is just mercy." They both laughed. It was real. It was needed. Vin leaned back in his chair. "This place feels like peace." Clara looked around. "It's quiet now. Too quiet some days. I talk to Harold's photo when it gets real bad. He don't talk back, though." Vin grew quiet. "I had a brother," he said finally. "Younger, funny, loud. He passed." Clara didn't pry. She just nodded. "That's why you stepped in at the bank," she said gently. "You've lost things. You know what it feels like." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. If you've ever found healing in the most unexpected places, or people, you already know what this story means. Subscribe, because stories like these deserve to be heard. It was the following week. Vin had dropped by Clara's place twice, brought her groceries, fixed the leaky pipe under the sink, changed a bulb she couldn't reach. He didn't ask permission. He just showed up. Clara didn't complain. But something in her tone had changed. One evening, as he placed a grocery bag on her counter, she finally snapped. "Why do you keep coming here?" Vin froze. "I thought we were past this." She wiped her hands on a dish towel, eyes sharp. "This ain't about friendship. This is about guilt." "What? You feel sorry for me?" He took a breath. "No, Clara. Don't lie to me. You see an old black woman alone and think she needs saving. I'm not your project." Vin's jaw tightened. "That's not what this is." She stepped forward, trembling slightly. "Then what is it, Vin? What do you want from me? My story, my tears? You want to feel like a hero?" His silence said too much. She turned away. "I don't need you coming in here, pretending to care. You show up, fix a few things, eat my food, and think that makes you family." "It's not about that," he said, quieter now. "You matter to me." "No, I remind you of someone. That's not the same." He looked down. She was right. "You're a good man," Clara said, softer now. "But this ain't about me. It's about what you lost." She picked up his card from the fridge and placed it in his hand. "Take it back." He didn't. "Please," she whispered. "I don't want to be anyone's memory." And just like that, the room grew cold again. Vin took a step back. "I'm sorry." She nodded, but her eyes were filled with something else. Grief. He left, didn't look back. Do you believe true love or deep connection can survive even after being tested this hard? Let us know in the comments. Some bonds don't break. Others never get the chance to mend. 3 days passed. Clara didn't hear a knock, didn't hear his car, didn't hear from him at all. Her living room felt heavier somehow, like his absence left a dent in the air. But she didn't call. She didn't reach out. She told herself she was proud, that she had boundaries. But she still checked the window twice a day. Vin sat in his truck outside the community center, engine off. He had her number. He had a reason. But something stopped him every time. What if she didn't want him back in her life? What if she was right, that this had been more about him than her? That night, Clara burned dinner. She never burned dinner. She dumped the pot in the sink and leaned over the counter, gripping the edge like it was the only thing keeping her standing. She hadn't realized how much he had filled the silence, how comforting his presence had become, not because she needed him, but because she liked having someone care. That scared her more than being alone. The next morning, Vin walked to her building. No grocery bag, no tools, no excuses. He just knocked. No answer. He knocked again. Still nothing. He turned to walk away, and the door creaked open. Clara stood in her robe, hair wrapped, eyes tired. She didn't smile. She didn't scowl either. "You look like you haven't slept," she said. "I haven't," he replied. "Neither have I." He shifted his weight. "I came to say I'm sorry." She crossed her arms. "For what?" "For making this about me, for not listening, for walking away." She looked at him for a long, painful second, then opened the door a little wider. "I made cornbread." He stepped inside. No dramatic hug, no tears, just two people sitting down again, sharing air, sharing silence, choosing to begin again, not because it was easy, but because it mattered. 2 weeks later, Clara stood in front of the same bank, same yellow envelope, same purse, same dress. But something was different. She wasn't alone. Vin walked beside her, not leading, not protecting, just walking with her. Inside, the lobby was busier than before. new faces behind the counters. The old assistant manager was nowhere to be seen. The young clerk, David, smiled when he saw her. "Miss James," he said warmly, walking over. "We've been expecting you." Clara handed over the envelope. He didn't rush her, didn't raise his voice, didn't treat her like a problem. And when she sat down to wait, Vin took the chair next to her. One of the new tellers, an older black woman, walked by and nodded to Clara. "You're the reason we finally filed complaints," she whispered. "The district got involved." Clara blinked, surprised. "Me?" "You and the man who didn't stay quiet," she said, glancing at Vin. "People noticed." Outside, when it was over, Clara stepped into the sunlight like it was the first time she'd felt warmth in weeks. She looked at Vin. "You ever get tired of doing the right thing?" He shrugged. "Every day." She smiled. "Then why keep doing it?" Vin looked back at the bank doors, then at her. "Because people like you shouldn't have to stand alone." She paused. That sentence landed somewhere deep. "Well," she said softly. "You starving?" Hungry? She laughed. "Then come on. I made that peach cobbler, and no, this time it's not out of pity. It's just damn good." They walked off, slowly, side by side. Not savior and victim, just two people who saw each other. And stayed. If this story touched something in you, if it reminded you that one voice, one act of kindness, one moment of courage can change a life, then don't just leave. Subscribe. These are the stories that matter. These are the stories that deserve to be told.